Hi, this is Steve from PixelBump. Welcome to the tutorial on recreating the Kinesis effect from Dead Space. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we're going to be doing. So we have this nice footage of Adam trying to reach for a knife that's just out of his reach. Ugh, so frustrating. So he creates So let's go ahead and dive into how this is created. First thing I want to do is kind of just review the footage as shot. It was shot on a tripod so that integration of the 3D and 2D effects later would be a lot easier. We had of Adam reaching and then using his Kinesis powers to pull the knife out of the block, brings it up, grabs it out of thin air, and goes back to cooking. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is create a clean plate for the knife block. Now I've already done a tutorial on clean plates over in the AE Bootcamp using this exact footage. If you don't know how to make a clean plate or you want to review the technique, jump on over there and check it out and then come on back. Here I'll just unshy my two layers for the clean plate, and as you can see, it's just the knife block cut out and a background without the knife block that's been masked off so that Adam's hand won't cross over onto the clean plate. Now the first thing we're going to want to do is track Adam's hand so that when the knife is in the air and he grabs it, the knife can follow his hand motion. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is come in and create a camera. And just a straight 50mm camera, default, completely fine. Next thing I'm going to want to do is come in and create a null. And I'm going to call this the hand null, hand tracker null. Now I'll double click on my footage of Adam and I'll find the space where his left hand comes up to grab the knife out of the air, right there. And I'm going to come over to my tracker and I'm going to motion track this guy. And we'll just position it maybe right here at the thumb. Let's go ahead and increase our search area and increase our feature area. And we'll just go frame by frame here. And we can see that since After Effects is having a hard time recognizing this shape, I'm going to want to come in and just manually adjust some of this track until it can pick it up. There we go. Now it's starting to track it really nicely. We'll probably start losing it again as the motion blur gets a little wild, but that's okay. We only need to manually track a small amount of frames here. It's looking good again. Oh, we've lost it. It's okay. We'll just come back, keep it right on that thumb until, there we go, till it's off screen. So that's our track. Let's go ahead and delete that last bad keyframe. Let's go ahead and make it on that one last keyframe. Go forward a frame. Yep, knife is now out of scene. So we will delete out that last piece of keyframe information. And we'll go ahead make sure our target is correct and apply the motion. All right, so now we've got a good track for the hand, but how are we going to get that over to Maya? Well, I found a beautiful little script called the AE 3D export. It's an older script, but it does take AE scene data and transfer it over to Maya, 3ds Max, and Lightwave. And it is really great at getting tracking information from After Effects over to Maya. So let's go ahead and run the script. And we're going to go to Maya, we're going to keep the scene name the same, hit export. We need to select the layer, so we want the camera and the tracker. Click export. It's going to think for a second, and there we go. Now if we go to the desktop, here we have our 3D scene. Let's go ahead and cut that, and we'll paste it into our Maya scenes folder. Now before we jump over to Maya for the next part, we're going to need to create an image sequence of this animation so that we can make sure our scene scale and our lighting are correct. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and render out the sequence as an image sequence. You can use PNG, you can use JPEG, you can use TIFFs, whatever you like. The important thing to remember is After Effects will always add this little underscore after your footage name. But Maya does not like the underscore. It instead wants a period. So go ahead, save that, render it out. All right, now we've got our image sequence exported. Let's jump over to Maya. And the first thing we're going to want to do is open up our exported data. And let's go ahead and look through our scene camera. And as you can see, when we get over to where the knife would be moving out and into his hand, we've got a nice locator tracked to what the hand will be. Well, how are we going to see everything? We're going to need to add an image plane to our camera. So we're going to come down to the environment and create an image plane. We're going to click create. We're going to click on the image name box, and we're going to open up our image sequence. And now we got to go ahead, and then we're going to need to click the use image sequence from the checkbox. And now we can see we've got a really nice null perfectly tracked to that hand. Okay, so the next thing we want to do in setting up a 3D scene is go ahead and create an Hdr Eye Sphere. And this is going to be used for reflections. So I'm going to come down, I'm going to create a sphere, and then in my 3D window, I'm just going to click and drag that sphere out till it's big enough to hold the entire scene. Now what I can do, let's call this Hdr Eye, is come over to my hypershade, and I'm going to create a Lambert. And this Lambert, I'm just going to name Hdr Eye Sphere. And in the color, I'm going to add a file. And by clicking on the folder icon, I'm going to go over to my library, grab an Hdr Eye. Maya's going to load that in. Then I'm going to click on the sphere, right click on the material, and assign the material to the selection. And there we go. If we hit the 6 key, we'll see that we have this nice Hdr Eye Sphere, but we're not going to want to look at it, so we're going to turn off its primary visibility, and we'll turn off its motion blur, cast and receive shadows. There we go. Now we're not seeing our image plane anymore, and that's because the sphere is actually a little too small. So let's go ahead, scale it out, and there, now the image plane is behind the sphere. If we come into a perspective mode, we can see that the plane being used for the camera backing, here's the sphere. You just want to make sure your sphere is big enough to encompass the entire scene. Okay, next thing I'm going to want to do is add a couple lights just to simulate where light is actually coming into the scene from. So I can see that there's a source up here giving some bright specular reflections. We've got a bit of a diffuse light back here from this door, and then we've got a big window over here. So I'm going to add 3 lights, and I'm just going to make them point lights. I'm going to grab this point light, I'm going to bring it up, bring it over, and I'm going to drop this guy down to like maybe a 0.7. I'm going to create another point light. And you don't have to use point lights, you can use any light you like. I'm just using point lights because it's going to be simple and fast to set this up. So this one I'm going to want to bring out just a little bit. And I'm going to leave that one at 1. So that's probably the brightest light in the scene. And finally, I'm going to create one more point light, bring it back. I'm going to drop it down. And this one I'm going to leave pretty low, maybe a 0.3. All right, so we've got a scene with an HDRI set up, we've got our light set up, we've got our camera and our null set up. Let's go ahead and start figuring out the animation. So what I'm going to want to do is come in here and import this knife model. And I'm going to want to grab the knife, I'm going to scale it up until I can see it. There it is. All right, now it's far too big, but at least now I can come in and start rotating it. And I will get it into position here. And about the right angle. There we go. Now I can come in, scale it back down to where it's about the size of the other knives in the scene. Let's go ahead and rotate it around. Get it locked into position here. Maybe bring it up in scale just a touch. There we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the materials on this knife. Right now it's completely gray. If I go ahead and take a preview render, let's check our render settings. We want to be over here in mental ray. And since we're doing a test render, let's go 960 by 540. Let's just take a quick preview here. And there it is in the scene. Okay. So the materials don't look so great yet, so let's go ahead and open up our hypershade. So the base, it's a little too shiny and specular for me right now. So I'm going to want to come in, increase the eccentricity in specular, maybe bring down the roll off until it's just a nice, more matte, more plasticky kind of look. Here in the knife, I'm going to want to come in and bump up the reflectivity. I want this to be pretty reflective. Let's bring down the glossiness. Let's go ahead and make it a metal material. All right, that's going to hold for the moment. We'll take another look at those materials before we render. So for the animation, we've got it pretty simple at this point. Let's go ahead and turn off PhysX for right now because that's a little bit annoying. All right, now before we start animating, I'm going to want to take this knife and drop it underneath the tracker null. This is because the world position of the knife is going to change based on its parent. So when I animate, I want to make sure I'm using the correct coordinates. So here at about frame 360, I'm going to go ahead and set a keyframe. For the rotation and the translation, I'm going to come down, click on this little key to turn on my auto keyer, and about frame 380, let's go ahead and have the knife pulled all the way out of the block. By frame 445, I'm going to want it in his hand, and I'm going to want to have it rotated into position. Let's go ahead and get that rotated to where it looks like it will fit nicely into his hand. About there. Comes up, rotates over, grabs it, and it comes down. There we go. Really nice, simple animation to get that integrated in. So let's go ahead and take a look at it in the air here for another render, see how our materials are holding up. Overall, that's pretty good. I'm not loving the material on the knife itself yet. So let's go ahead. So that's looking pretty good. Changed a little bit of the reflectivity, changed a little bit of the material type. That's looking much better. I think that's going to composite nicely. So the next thing I'm going to want to do is come back to my camera. I'm going to want to go into my image plane, and I'm going to want to make sure that the display mode is set to none. That's going to turn this background off in our next render. Let's go ahead and take a look. That's looking pretty good. Our sphere is still showing up, even though we have the primary visibility off, which is odd. There we go. Just need to turn off double-sided. So let's go ahead, come back to our render settings. We're going to go 1920 by 1080. We're going to go, my IFF sequence is fine. Let's call this knife animation Maya. We're going to do a frame sequence, and we're going to go from frame, let's see, let's go from frame 360 out to frame 467. All right, let's make sure our quality is at a good level, which it is. Let's save this, and then we'll go over to our render menu and render, batch render. We'll bring up our script editor so we can watch the render go, make sure that there's no issues. There it goes. Looks like it's rendering okay. I'm going to go ahead and pause here, and we'll come back as soon as this render is finished. Okay, so we've got our render finished. Let's go ahead and pull that into After Effects, import it as a sequence, and let's get it set to frame 360. Where we're going to want our animation to be. So you'll see it comes up, comes out and over, into his hand, and down. Great. Now the first thing we're going to want to do is come in and time remap the knife so that the animation will stay solid the entire time. So we'll see that image the entire time. Let's go ahead and clean up this last little bit. It seems our track was off just enough that we're going to have to add a little extra animation to it. So let's grab our position, set our position and our rotation. Now we're going to need to counter animate this just a bit. So let's go ahead, bring the rotation, bring the position down, make sure that's looking pretty good. And we might want to move the rotation a little bit. So let's go ahead, reposition that. Getting off a little bit here. There we go. With some motion blur, that's going to look really good. And then for this last few frames, I'm just going to pull the knife underneath Adam's body, and we'll set our out keyframe. There we go. Let's go ahead and turn on the motion blur here. There we go. Real nice. So the next thing we're going to want to do is add a little bit of rotoscoping to do some of the secondary effects. We're going to need rotoscoping for the knife when it crosses over Adam's body. Oops. And we're going to need some for some of the reflective light we're going to need later. Now, I've already gone ahead and done this rotoscoping. Again, there's an AE bootcamp on rotoscoping that you can watch so that you don't have to watch me rotoscope right now. I'm just going to unshy those layers, and we're going to turn them on. So now the knife is nicely in his hand. Oh, you see we got off a little bit here. Let's go ahead, get that knife back in. Very good. And yep, right there. Don't need to see the knife anymore. So the knife is now in, but we're going to want to add a bit of color correction to it. So let's go ahead and grab a curves. And we'll just do a little bit of quick color matching. Reds are looking pretty good. Greens are looking okay. I probably want to brighten them up a little bit. Don't want to lose too much there. Just brighten it right on up. Brighten up the greens a little bit. So they're nice and bright. Bring down the blacks on that. Let's go to the blue channel. Same thing. Brighten it up, bring it down. And the red channel. Let's brighten that guy up and bring him down. Come back, take a look. Yeah, that looks much better. Okay, so now we've got our knife in. We've got it moving nicely. And the next thing we're going to want to do is start animating the clean plates. And we're going to take our knife block, and as Adam starts reaching for it here, about frame 250, let's come into the rotation and let's add a quick expression control for the slider. Because what we're going to do is we're going to add, alt-click on the rotation and add a wiggle. And we'll make it maybe 3, and we're going to link it to our slider. Close the parentheses, add a semicolon. And now what I can do is animate my wiggle. So as the effect starts happening, I'm going to bring that wiggle up so that it starts moving. And that's probably a little too much. Let's maybe go 10. Still too much. Let's go like 5. And let's go ahead and increase the amount to 6. That's too much still. Oh, rotation, wrong layer. Rotation. And let's go ahead and drop this guy down to maybe add some extra keyframes. That's a problem. Let's drop this down to maybe 2. Just there we go. Just want a nice little vibration. Around here, the knife is coming up, so the effect on the block should start falling off. And then as the knife comes out and into his hand, we're going to turn that effect completely off. Now we have the knife underneath our clean plate right now, so let's go ahead and jump that up. There we go. And as it comes up, what we're going to want to do is add a mask to this, so that while it's in the block, oops, let's turn off Roto Bezier, and while it's in the block, we're only going to want to see the knife hilt. Let's go ahead and mask that path. Let's go ahead and keyframe that mask path. And then as it comes out, we'll go ahead, make sure that our mask path is big enough. There we go. Comes out into his hand, all good. Let's go ahead and give that a little bit of feather, maybe a 2 pixel feather. And let's go ahead and add a little bit of blur to that knife. It's a little bit too sharp for the rest of the scene. DSLR footage is a little bit fuzzy. There we go, nice little 2 pixel blur. Now the last thing we're going to want to do is come back here to before the effect starts, and we're going to parent our knife to the knife block. So that way as it starts rotating, everything rotates together, moves together nicely. There we go. Now if I preview this, I think we're going to see we have a really nice animation happening here. There we go. So let's move on to the next part. So to build the Kinesis effect itself, we're going to want to track a little more of Adam, and we're going to want to track his hand. And to do that, I'm going to create a new null. Call this the hand tracker. And I'm going to come back in, double click on my footage, track motion. And what I'm going to track this time is his watch. His watch has a really nice shape that's going to be real easy to track. So we're just going to come in, play it forward. Up. We dropped off there as the hand moved up. Let's come back. Let's try frame by framing it. See if we can get anything a little more solid. There we go. Let's try moving forward again. Looks like it's holding much better now. And we're just going to let it track through for the entire time that we want that effect happening. Okay, so we've got a good track. I'm going to apply the tracking data to the hand tracker. I'm just going to come in and just set the in and out points of it, just so I know where this effect begins and ends. There we go. So the first thing that the Kinesis effect has is a lightning kind of effect. So let's create a solid. We'll call it lightning. And we'll come over to After Effects and add Advanced Lightning. And we're going to want to switch it from a directional to a two-way strike. And we're going to position our two-way strike here around where the knife is. And in the effect, what we can do, let's get a little more room. We'll come down here to the position of the hand tracker, and we're going to take our origin, alt-click it, and pick whip it over to the position. So now we should have that lightning following the hand really closely. There we go. And let's go ahead and bring that down. We're going to come in and change the effect look a little bit. I don't like its default setting. I want my lightning to have a little more of a pale look to it. I'm going to want to come down and play with the glow a little bit. I'm going to turn on Decay Main Core, so that way I can ramp this effect up and down. That's looking better. So let's go ahead and click on our decay, set a keyframe. We're going to come out to about where it's fully started, move that keyframe over, come back to the beginning, and we're going to turn the decay way up to where this effect is off. Now it'll turn itself on. It's probably a little too heavy. So let's come over to the core settings. Let's bring it down a bit. Let's turn down our forking a bit until we have something that's a little more subtle. There we go. Now as the knife comes out, I want to set a keyframe on the direction, and I'm just going to have it follow that knife up. Right to there. See, gets off a little bit, so let's bring it up. Bring it on up. Over. That gets a little too high here, so we'll bring it down. There we go. All right, so as it's starting to hit its apex, let's go ahead and set another keyframe on the decay. And as he's about to reach for it, we'll ramp the decay back up again to turn the effect off. Let's go ahead and preview what we've got. And let's make sure we turn the layer off at that point. All right, that's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and add some more to it. So the Kinesis effect should have a nice glow around your hand. And you can do that a couple different ways. I'm going to go ahead and use an optical flare. And I'm going to come in, optical flare, add that guy in. I'm going to change it over to a screen mode. And I'm going to, again, use the position of the hand tracker to control where my flare is. My XY position, alt-click, pick whip it over to the position, and there we go. Now we have a nice little blue, but it's over the watch. Not quite what we want. So let's modify this a little bit. let's get rid of the original expression. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to alt-click, and I'm going to say x is equal to, y is equal to, and then I'm going to put in a bracket that says x comma y. And the first thing I want to do is make sure that my x is equal to, not the entire position, but just the x data. Oh, yeah. Gets upset because the expression isn't fully done yet. Then I'm going to come down and I'm going to pick whip that y over to just the y data. And then I'm going to add that. And there we go. Now it looks like nothing has changed, but what this gives me the ability to do is come over and say x plus 50. And now it's moved it over 50 pixels, so it's much closer to the hand. Let's go ahead and add 10 to the y as well. And now we've got that flare from the tracking data directly over the hand, which is exactly where we want it. So with that in place, I can come in and change the look of my flare. And I'm not liking that one off the top. Let's go ahead and see if we can find a preset that looks pretty good. And with a lot of these, I come in and I just turn off a lot of the irising, just because I don't want these extra sparkles. But that's a taste thing, and whatever you like is going to work well for you. So let's go back. Let's get rid of Okay, so let's go ahead and add a little blur to this. It's just a little too sharp for me right now. Let's just give it a little bit of blur. That's starting to look pretty good. Now we need to do the animation on it, so let's go ahead and come down to the brightness. We'll set a keyframe here, turn it all the way down. Again, as it comes up and as the effect's ready to turn off, we'll set a keyframe. And before we lose its tracking data, we'll turn it all the way off. Let's go ahead and move that out a little bit. There we go. So now we've got a nice flare. We've got our lightning. The next thing we're going to want to add is a few particles. And I'm going to come in, add one more solid, call it my particular layer. I'm going to come down here, grab particular, drop it on, and one more time, we're going to take our effect and we're going to take the emitter position, alt-click it, and we're going to bring that down to the position again. There we go. Now we can start tuning this effect. So we've got our emitter. It's got a decent amount of particles. Let's go ahead and bring this over so that it starts at the same time. They're moving a little too slow for me, so I'm going to bring up their velocity a bit. And then I'm going to come down to the particle look, and I'm going to have them have a very short lifespan. I don't want them going too far. Let's go ahead and give a little bit of randomization. Let's go ahead and do a glow sphere maybe, and drop their size down to maybe 2. A little bit of randomization there. Go ahead and give them opacity randomization, just adding more and more randomization just to give it a little more of a natural look. Now the opacity over life, I'm going to want them to be born and then fade out. So let's go ahead now and increase their lifespan, since they were getting a little hard to see. And we're going to come down to the physics and we are going to add a little bit of spin to them, just so they move around nicely. There we go. That's looking pretty good. They are probably living too long right now. So let's go back to particle. Let's put them back where they were at 0.5. Pretty good. Let's go ahead and add some turbulence to them as well. I want a little more movement out of them. There we go. Now the final part I want to add to those particles is some motion blur. So I'm going to come down, turn on motion blur. There we go. Now we have these nice little particles coming out. That's looking pretty good. I think my lightning effect is a little too strong right now. So I'm going to come down and I'm just going to drop it down just a touch. Maybe 80% there. That's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and go to the optical flare and let's just increase its scale a bit. There we go. There we go. Now we're starting to get somewhere. All right. So the next thing we're going to want to do is start working with some of these masks. So like I said, I have a mask for the hand when it comes in. I have another mask here for Adam's face. I have another mask for his body, and I have another mask for the top of the cabinet. And what we want to start doing is having the environment react to this effect. Just give it another level of realism. So I'm going to come down here, I'm going to grab a glow, and I'm going to drop my glow onto the face. Let's go ahead and turn off the helpers for a moment so we can see what we're doing. Let's change our A and B colors over, and instead of original colors, we'll say A and B colors. Let's go ahead and bring the glow threshold to where we can start to see the effect. And let's bring up the intensity a bit. Let's go ahead and make these a little more saturated. Let's go over here and grab a tint effect. And what I'm going to do is just create a little more color on his face. I'm sorry. Oops. Let's go ahead and grab the tint effect, drop that onto the face, and I'm going to remap it over to a nice blue here. A nice blue. Let's make sure our opacity is all the way up so we can see what we've got. Now let's add a glow. And what we're going to do is change the A and B colors over to those similar blues. I'm going to want to change the glow colors from original to A and B. Let's go ahead and pull. Let's go ahead and raise up our glow threshold a little bit. And then the next thing we're going to want to do is add a fast blur, just to fuzz it out a little bit. We don't want it to be too intense. All right, so now we've got a little bit of light here. And for the opacity of this layer, we're going to want to do the same thing. We're going to come in, turn it up. As the effect starts to end. Turn it off. And then the final thing we'll do to the opacity is Alt-click and add a wiggle. And we'll go 6 and 50. Just want to add a nice little bit of flickering. There we go. That's looking pretty good. It's probably too intense overall, so I'm going to drop my keyframes down to 50 each, and maybe drop that wiggle down to 30. There we go. That's pretty good. Now, it looks like we forgot to turn off our particular layer, so what we'll do is come down, take the particles per second. We're going to go back a few frames, move forward a frame, and just completely turn them off. There we go. So now when we're sure they're completely out, let's just go ahead and turn that layer off as well. Same with the optical flare. Keep it nice and clean so we know when things are coming in and going out. Okay, so let's repeat that process on the shirt and on the cabinet. We'll copy over our same effects. Let's go ahead and turn the opacity on the shirt up a bit, bring it over, keyframe that up and down, and then add our wiggle. Once again, come down to the cabinet layer, ramp it up and down, and then we'll add our wiggle. And let's see what we got. There we go. None of that is too in your face, but it does just add, like I said, a nice level of interactivity between the effects and the scene itself. All right. So overall, I'm starting to really like this effect. I think we need to add some glow here to the block. So let's go down to the knife block. Let's go ahead and add a glow to that. And we'll change it from A and B color over to A and B colors. Add our same nice blue effect to it. Maybe a darker blue here. There we go. Let's go ahead, increase the radius on it. Let's bring down the intensity. And where are we going to want to start that glow threshold? Probably about right there. So let's go ahead, bring up our glow threshold, set a keyframe. Oops. Set a keyframe. Accidentally turned on the expression. We'll come to where the effect's on full. Let's ramp this guy back down. Same thing, fade it back out. And we'll add our wiggle now. Let's try 20, see where that gets us. And 20 is a little too intense. Let's try 5. just want it to flicker a little bit. There it is. That's looking pretty good. Okay, so let's go ahead and add that same exact effect to the knife itself. So let's find where it's up, and it should be fully blue. Let's turn off our... There we go. So we're going to want to go down to 0 for this guy to get him to really show up. Turn up the intensity on a little bit, bring down the radius. So same thing, we're going to come down to our glow threshold, and we're going to set a keyframe, move it over, bring up that glow threshold, here where the knife should stop, turn it off. So now he's holding a lightsaber. And it's probably a little too intense, so let's go ahead, bring that out. Let's take down the intensity a bit, bring that back down, bring down the intensity a bit. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that effect. Let's go ahead and move on to the finishing touches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my full comp and drop it into another comp. And I'm going to call this my final. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a little bit of handheld motion. So I'm going to take a motion tile, drop it on, and I'm just going to mirror 105 and 105, and I'm going to bring up the scale just a little bit, and now I'm going to add in a PB real camera shake. You can download this script in our free stuff section. It's a great script for adding camera shake to any of your shots. So I'm going to click create control null. My control null is ready, and now I'm going to link my footage to my null. And I'm going to go ahead and play it through for a second here. So I have this feeling that it's a little heavy on the shake. I'm going to go ahead, let's drop that down to 30%. And let's go ahead and do that with the rotation as well. Let's maybe go down to 15% of the original motion. I just want a subtle effect. I don't want this to be too in your face. There we go. That's a nice realistic hand camera look. So the final thing I'm going to do is add a little bit of color correction over the whole thing. I'm going to add an adjustment layer, call it my color correction. I'm going to come down to my curves, and I'm going to drop that in. I'm going to grab a colorama, and I'm going to drop that in. And the colorama, I'm going to come down to my output cycle, and I'm going to go with something maybe in the blues. That's a little too blue. Okay, maybe not the Caribbean. Let's try something else. Let's try, oh, Deep Ocean looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and lessen it. There we go. We got a nice kind of cross-processed look there, before and after. And let's go ahead and drop that before the curves. Then we'll come down to our curves, and we'll just add a nice little filmic S curve to it. That's looking pretty cool. And let's go ahead and repeat the shift tilt look. So we'll need a layer for blur. And I'll add a fast blur to this layer. Repeat the edge pixels, maybe a 10. I'm going to come in, grab my mask tool, and I'm going to feather it a couple hundred pixels, and I'm going to subtract it. Maybe drop that down a little bit, maybe increase the blur just a little bit more. Let's go ahead and preview this guy to see what the whole thing looks like. And there we go. Got a nice handheld look with a color custom correction over a fun effect straight out of Dead Space 2. Hopefully this will inspire the lazy chef in you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something that you can use in your work. If you have any questions, please hit me up on Twitter or Facebook or in the comments. Thanks for watching. Go and create.